Hi everybody. I'm the itinerant here, Jerry Britton. I'm also the EI teacher at the high school. One of my students, Ryan Smith, we worked on a presentation for health class. They asked him to do an extra credit presentation and present it to the health class on autism and what it's like to be Asperger's. A little bit of history, Ryan and I worked together when he was in 9th grade. It was a really long year.
Yes.
Because Ryan at that time had lots of behavioral issues, and we spent most of every day together. And Ryan earned all his classes back. Ryan went away for 2 years. At the end of 9th grade, he had earned all his classes back and was in all regular education settings. And at the end of that year, he left, and they went to Florida for 2 years. Ryan has come back for his senior year, and he's now he is in all general education classes, to include Algebra 2, biology, so pretty intense classes. But he's done this PowerPoint, and we thought so highly of it at the high school, we want to take him on the road. Yeah. So I'm going to let him get started.
Thank you very much, everybody. I'm Ryan Smith, and I created a PowerPoint presentation on autism. I'm going to be talking about what it's like to have it, things that are involved with it, how teachers can deal with it, things like that. What is autism? Autism is a complex neurological disorder that affects the brain. It impairs communication skills, social interaction, and motor skills. Things like, with the motor skills, writing with a pencil. Sometimes the autistic children would have poor handwriting because with my case, it's kind of shaky, as you can see here. You might not be able to see it, but on my paper you can definitely see it. In fact, I get incorrect answers on the test for this. And with the social interaction, it's all to do with perception of the social cues. And a bit of emotional behavior things go on just at the same time. How the autistic mind works is that it's very literal. It has a kind of a problem with figurative language. Like for me, in biology class, my teacher said the phrase, "go figure." I still don't know what that means. I can't figure it out. I asked my mom, I asked my health teacher. Still can't figure it out. The social interaction and communication skills. Some autistic children, I of course am articulate. I have no communication problems, except that I might say things that are insensitive. But for some autistic children, they might not learn to speak until age 5 or something like that. In classic autism, that's always a problem. You can usually tell that they have speech delay. Saying like you've got a toddler who's a year old, usually around that age, toddlers start to use words or they start to make noises. Autistic children might never reach that stage, or they might get delayed, like they start using words at 3 years of age or something. It comes in many different forms. There are some rather interesting ones. One of them is Asperger syndrome. The one I recently discovered is called, I think it's Angelman syndrome. You've also got the very rare ones like Rett syndrome and childhood disintegrative disorder. Causes the affected person to experience the world and senses differently. This is one of the big problems, and it's probably one of the most neglected areas. It's the sensory problems. Like you've got this one kid in like science class, and he's looking at a bright light, and if it's a fluorescent light, it might cause a problem. If he's sensitive to those, like he can see the fluorescent lights flickering on and off. Most people cannot see it because I think it's going too fast. But there are some people who can actually see the lights flickering on and off. They might be sensitive to sound. I can't tolerate the noise of the jets. I have to cover my ears, or else it's overwhelming. It can also affect the taste buds as well. The taste and touch and things like that. Even smell. Like for me, I'm hypersensitive to touch. Every waking moment of my life, I get itches all over my body that I have to scratch. When somebody touches me on the shoulder, that generates an itch. And sometimes I get this weird tingling sensation on the back, and it's kind of weird. According to statistics, they may vary from state to state, but at least 1 in 166 have it, and it's becoming more frequent as new ways to diagnose autism are being performed. Why should you be informed of it? People with autism have strengths and weaknesses just like everyone else, but to a greater extreme. If people work and focus on the strengths, wonderful things can happen. The key is finding what they like. I know this, one famous example would be the child who's interested in molecular structure. He could grow up to become a very successful chemist or something like that. He was interested in chemistry. It's, I believe the world needs those kind of interests. When the autistic person likes something, it is generally a good idea to find out what it is that they like and build on it. Like if he's interested in art and you see him drawing wonderful pictures at age 5, like detailed scenes, build on it. If he wants art supplies, get him art supplies, because he might grow into one of the famous artists that we know today. Same thing with scientists. If they like science, hey, it could become the next Albert Einstein or something. On the other hand, if autism is not handled properly, the autistic person may have great difficulty in real-life situations. For example, me, although I think I'm pretty well off, I haven't been taught the basics of living at home, like taking care of myself. I can't manage my money. I don't know how to do most things in the house, like how to, let's say for example, how to put wallpaper on a wall. I still haven't been taught that. And also,
you don't want to learn.
That's true, I don't want to learn.
My wife tried to teach me, I told her I can't.
I can't do it. It often helps to not force the autistic kids into something they don't like. Like if they're really afraid of heights, making them ladder and hope they'll forget their fears. That's not going to work. But if they hadn't tried something that you know they'll enjoy, you'll have to push them a bit, because they can be very resistant. Major characteristics of autism: lack of communication skills, like I said before, lack of empathy. Now, the thing with empathy is that, how should I put this kindly?
Don't put it kindly, Ryan, just say it.
All right. The way the autistic mind works is that in normal people, they view people as people and objects as objects. The autistic mind thinks of people as objects. They can't empathize with other people. They can't get inside their skin and know what it's like for them. This is a big problem for me, especially in literature. I'm in English 12 right now, and we're reading a lot of stories and books and everything. I have no clue what the author's talking about, even with characters, even what they say. I often picture things the wrong way, and then things don't make sense. Black and white thinking.
Yep.
This is one of the problems that should be addressed early. That way, the autistic kids will know flexibility. I think it is important to teach them flexibility, because otherwise, if say for example that the autistic student has an assignment that's due tomorrow. It's a big project, and he was given a week to do it, but he was absent a few days. If he discovers that it's due tomorrow, he's going to panic, and then he's going to, even if you offer any solutions, he'll still panic because he thinks if he doesn't do it by tomorrow, he'll break the rules. And even on I have an IEP that gives me extended time for assignments if class time is used wisely. I still try to get things done on time because I still feel an obligation to get things turned in on time. And I tend to panic even if I'm given extended time. The extended time is helpful, of course. The expanded imagination. This, I tend to daydream a lot. I do it in class, I do it at home, I do it when I'm looking at my folder. I do it when I listen to music, and I do it when I'm on the bus, or when I just want some peace and quiet. The reason why I like peace and quiet so much is because I want to daydream. This often leads to daydreaming in class and things like that. And it becomes a problem. Emotional attachment to certain objects. This folder right here, this is one of those objects. You know how you've got the normal people, you know, like those little school children who have their teddy bears that they're attached to. It's that same kind of relationship, but in autism, it might just be, it could be with anything, like a block of wood or something, or the pictures they drew in this folder, which is my case. In this folder, I've got pictures that I drew some time ago that I update regularly. It has no meaning to anyone but me, except if you're my parents and they know that I'm pretty good with drawing, even though I'm not the best artist in the world. I'm improving. These are some of my pictures. I like the concept of animals. It's one of my interests. This is one of the reasons I like the folder, because it has pictures that I do. Sensory problems. Like I said before, with the lights and everything, and the sound, it can be anything. It can even be waves lapping against the shore, like if you take the child to the beach. He might cover his ears and scream. Great difficulty controlling emotions. Miss Britton knows this all too well. Knows this all too well. And trust me, you do not want to see me at middle school. Horrible. Big emotional problems, because I was teased constantly. It was pure evil. Worst part of my life. And speech delay. Now here's the thing about Asperger syndrome, which is what I've got. There's no obvious speech delay. In fact, some kids with Asperger syndrome, although it's a form of autism, they tend to have decent vocabularies. Some of which can, you find like a 5-year-old reading a dictionary about this big for really complicated words, like mountaineering and electrification or something. That was one of the at the primary school. You know, there was a school called Bethel Primary. It's almost next to where I live. We used to have spelling tests all the time, and as a little treat, I'd get to pick a big word out of the dictionary to use on the spelling test. I picked out the longest words, and I got extra credit. I got, you know, Harry Potter, and they have the house points thing. That's exactly what happened in my school. I got 5 house points. Peculiar interests and obsessions. I obsess over things like my folder and my computer, because I like to do things. I mean, I obsess over my stories as well. Like, I want things to be absolutely perfect. Like, I can sometimes, say for example, if the autistic student is interested in writing, he loves to write stories, and he loves to write it in a style that not most people would write it in. So, and he would probably try to make it perfect, like you can spot every grammar error or something, just because that's what he likes to do. But it can also be with trains, things like that. It can also be with things that people may think are childish things, but if you develop it, it can turn into something like you could invent the next super train or something, like the fastest train on the earth. It could grow into something like that. Ritualistic behavior, arm flapping, walking around in circles. I don't flap my arms a whole lot, but I do walk around in circles. I do pace around the room like I did today before the presentation. It drove one of the teacher aides crazy. It helps me concentrate on the things that I'm talking about. It helps me tune out all the extra information that's coming to my brain, mainly through my ears, because people are talking about things that are irrelevant to what I'm thinking of. So I pace around the room and it helps me focus. And it's kind of a habit as well. Tone of voice may be monotonous or unvarying. This is one of my things. I can't make my voice sound very high or very low, because if I try to do it so high, it'll just cut off at a certain point. You won't hear anything. If I do it low, it's just impossible to do. Echolele in young children. Basically what happens is that this is particularly common in the small children, like the 2 or 3-year-olds, who haven't developed proper speech patterns yet. So say if you watch a commercial, like on Tesco's, they'll repeat the words without knowing what they mean. Autism in a nutshell. Every 60 seconds, a child is diagnosed with autism. They can feel, see, hear, taste, and smell the world differently from others, often to extreme levels. They can be, it's like when you turn the stereo up to really high, and it's kind of irritating to some people. That's kind of like how the autism senses work. They have their senses turned up or down. They believe that rules should be strictly followed no matter what, even if it's absurd in some cases. Fluorescent lights, this can be a big problem. It may drive them crazy. Things touching their skin can feel like needles in some cases. Smoke alarms can blow out their ears. This is something that Temple Grandin mentioned. She works for the animal welfare. She has autism herself. Fumes from bleach can be overwhelming. I have a problem with air fresheners because the smell from the air fresheners, like when someone uses the bathroom and I spray the room, when I spray the room, the little dust particles float down the air fresheners. It's too much for me to bear. It's overwhelming, so I have to leave the room. Even the most severely effective can have some sort of amazing skill or talent. Like you've got, say for example, this guy likes music, and he knows how to play the piano at age 5, like a professional. He's got such good skill with it, but he may be unable to speak. Things like that. Usually with a special skill or talent, there's a price to pay for it. Although there are some cases where there's no apparent defect. Autism is very variable. Like I said before, you've got Asperger syndrome, you've got PVD, you've got Angelman syndrome, you've got the really severe ones like the Rett syndrome and everything. When they have tantrums or meltdowns, it's mainly because they are either having sensory overload, like from when people touching them and they needles and everything, horrible. Frustrated because they can't communicate, especially for those who can't speak yet, or have trouble speaking in meaningful sentences that everyone can understand. Or they're trying to get out of doing something they don't like. This is something that Temple Grandin mentioned in her presentation, because I couldn't understand what she's getting at. I mean, I'm afraid of heights. I mean, really freak out over heights. I cannot ride roller coasters. Never. I tried once with the big water slides they have. I don't like going so fast, and I don't like the thought of being so high that something could go wrong. I could fall out and meet my doom. So I tend to panic over that. Some absolutely hate changes in routine. Like, I would panic if there was a big schedule change, like I didn't know where to go. I would probably freak out. And it can be for a variety of things. Even if, say, if an autistic child lines 5 blocks up in a row, and he has them in its exact order, and he doesn't want it disturbed, and the minute somebody walks in and accidentally kicks one, he screams or something, like, stop right there, you put that back, things like that. How the autistic brain works differently in 2 ways. The senses. It's all in the head, it's all in the brain. Like if he's sensitive to fluorescent lights, it's not the eyes that are the problem, it's the brain, how it perceives the sensory information. Same thing with the skin and with the nose and everything. And it's also possible that they might be undersensitive, like hypersensitive to sensory information, certain kinds. Like I saw this one video on YouTube that basically describes how you can recognize autism at an early age. it mentions that some autistic students underreact to the pain. Like you've got the student who, say if he falls down from a certain place that's above the ground and he falls and breaks his arm, he might not even cry. He might not even feel it. Judgment. Now, the frontal area of the head, this is responsible for the planning and the consciousness and the things like common sense are affected. There is more gray and white matter in the autistic brain than the normal brain. Gray matter is like the brain's processors, and the white matter is the interconnectedness between the different brain regions. This is something that Temple Grandin mentioned in her presentation. And she also mentioned that there's two ways you can make a brain. There's a really social one, and she likes to view things like the autistic brain as this giant corporate office building. And you've got the math department, you've got the sales department, you've got the executive department. And what happens is that some areas might get more, let's say, that she used the example, internet and emails and phone connections. Some areas get more than others. And the white matter is actually the brain, the interconnectedness in everything. Things like if you've got someone who is into math and he's very good at it. Like, say if you've got someone who is a savant. If any of you have watched Rayman, you'll see an autistic savant is really good with certain things, but sometimes can be really bad with something. That's the price you pay for having such a skill, like mathematics, for instance, calculating large numbers. He might not be able to draw or anything, but he might be able to think a certain way. Asperger syndrome. This is a milder version of autism. This is what I have. I was diagnosed when I was 8 years old. People who have been diagnosed with Asperger's have no obvious speech delay. Usually they are diagnosed at around 8 or 9 years of age. They usually have average to above average IQs. I took an IQ test when I was 5. My IQ was 143. They have obsessions just like people with classic autism. Although they have the intelligence, that they have a higher chance of turning it into something brilliant. I mean, look at Bill Gates and Albert Einstein. Look at how successful they've become. Even the creator of Pokemon is autistic. He has Asperger syndrome. His colleagues, the people he worked with, they know he's insane. Their sensory problems tend to be milder. Like, I don't feel needles when somebody touches me, like in some cases. It's more itchy. I mean, it's an itch that I have to scratch. It's like when you put too much shampoo on your head and your head becomes like a rash. Sometimes that happens to me on certain areas of my body. Usually it happens on my legs. Unlike classic autism, here's the thing about autism. It seems like they want to socialize, but they can't, so they tend to stay away from people, any form of social interaction. Or they might be interested in a particular object and might want to tune out everything. Now, with Asperger's, we are sometimes called Aspies. We call ourselves Aspies. We usually want to socialize with people, but may appear awkward or odd. Like, with the whole interpretation of figurative language thing. Or they might, with their obsessions and everything, they might carry on about what they want to do, like how they're interested in trains and everything. They might talk incessantly about trains, not giving people a chance to comment. Symptoms have to be at least during age 3. If it's before age 3, it's classic autism, or something similar to that. Asperger's, there's usually, it doesn't appear until later. Now, there are learning styles. Many people know this, but the visual learners, they learn by pictures. They'll probably poor at algebra like I am. I have big problems with algebra. I certainly can't do algebra very well. I can do arithmetic, but it's just something about algebra. It's all about the visual way of thinking. They think in pictures. And with algebra, it's so abstract that you can't really think of a picture. With the best you can do is with fractions. You can like have an apple pie or something, cut it in half, cut it in quarters. And there's the music and math thinkers. They learn by patterns. And the verbal logic, these guys, they use reasoning. They learn, I think, by language or the written word or something. Like you've got the great problem solvers here. Effective strategies for teachers and students. Good teachers will avoid long explanations and give feedback immediately. Keep it short and simple, because oftentimes what I find, say if in a book like I have Mr. Reed for computer animation, his books are so descriptive and they put so many words into one sentence. They don't keep it short and simple. They often confuse me and often make a mistake. Learn to teach in a way that matches the autistic student's learning style. I think I've discovered that the autistic brain, everybody prefers a certain way of learning. Like if you've got the visual thinkers, you can kind of learn from the other two ways. But in autism, it's like it's one and only one way. That's in my case anyway. I'm a heavily visual thinker. Avoid asking vague questions because we may never know the answer. I mean, I hate vague questions. Like, I don't think philosophy would be a good course for me to know. Give the student a timeout or a chance to cool down if the student is about to have a meltdown. This was key in my early high school years and when I was in 8th grade. Teachers let me have a timeout for me to cool down because the autistic one way. That's in my case anyway. I'm a heavily visual thinker. Avoid asking vague questions because we may never know the answer. I mean, I hate vague questions. Like, I don't think philosophy would be a good course for me to know. Give the student a timeout or a chance to cool down if the student is about to have a meltdown. This was key in my early high school years and when I was in 8th grade. Teachers let me have a timeout for me to cool down because the autistic people, I mean, they don't think like everyone else. I mean, people, they know that when that breaking stuff is bad, but what happens in the autistic mind, it gets, like say if they're angry, they get so angry that they just can't recognize it. Like if for me, I used to throw my bag around all the time in 9th grade. I mean, my emotions just take over my brain. It takes over and I do things that I wouldn't normally do. Focus on strengths. Oftentimes in schools, what they will do is that they will focus on the weaknesses, not giving the student a chance to work on the strengths. Give the student a chance to prove himself. Like if he's interested in math, and he needs to be in geometry and trig by 7th or 8th grade. Like he's that good at it. If you put him in the same level as everyone else, he might get bored and misbehave. Same thing with literature. Like if you find a 5th grader reading Charles Dickens' book or Shakespeare, let him read it. He might learn a thing or two from it, and then he might really know something that other middle schoolers or elementary school people, they might not know. Good students will avoid becoming involved with a meltdown when there is one. Oftentimes, the worst thing they can do is aggravate the situation because nobody likes meltdowns. Sometimes they can last for hours. They can get pretty scary at times and violent as well. So things and people may be hurt if there is a meltdown. I don't do that anymore, but I used to. I actually attacked some teachers back in middle school. But I don't think about it. I don't think that I'm hurting. I don't think about the consequences. It's just a volcano effect, like Mother Nature is destroying the village, that kind of thing. Respect the individual for who he or she is. Like like the people, autistic students and people, especially people with Asperger syndrome, they're the ones who tend to get made fun of in school. That is not the way to go. If Bill Gates created Microsoft, and he did a lot of things with the computer, he's not one to be made fun of. Let the student know if she is being disruptive, but in a non-hateful way. Be supportive and respectful. Talk to the student about his or her problems. If he or she is in a bad mood, this will likely prevent a meltdown. I have group therapy in high school with some other people who are autistic or have Asperger syndrome. We have group therapy and we talk about our problems, and this helps to alleviate some of the pain that we go through. It's like you've got, I don't really know how to put it, but it's like you want to get rid of the bomb before it explodes. That kind of thing. Autism and success. They have the potential for greatness. They need to know what they like and how to make it happen. This right here is one of those examples. This is the principal's honor roll given to students who got straight A's during first quarter. In my case, this is what I received during the awards assembly during the first quarter. Got straight A's for the quarter. And there are special privileges for those with 4.0s. If they have problems, don't get in the way. They need a structured and supportive environment for them to develop and become successful people. We love predicting things. We love to stay in our comfort zone that we know what's going to happen and we can see it coming, so we can take steps to prepare for it. If they like something and want to talk about it, please listen. They are some of the greatest inventors in history. Give them a chance to prove themselves if they're serious about what they want to do. Higher expectations can yield even higher results. These are references for the sites I went to. I know they're not the best, but that is a problem for me, like rearranging things in order. It was a nightmare in English because the teacher made me put the references in exact order like you'd see in the 3 to 4 line things. Horrible. Got points taken off for that. Cannot do it. That is the end of the slideshow.
So if you have any questions. So if anybody has any questions they'd like to ask Ryan, feel free.
Do you have any brothers or sisters?
I have one sister. We don't get along very well.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, so she's reached that age where...
So she's younger than you?
She's younger than me. She's 14.
Right.
She's a freshman at that, in high school. Mm-hmm. She's good there, but at home it becomes a problem.
How do you prevent a meltdown?
I listen to music or look at my folder. The folder is kind of, basically, yeah, it's soothing in a weird sort of way. Like it's something that you go to comfort yourself. Like if you want to go to your happy place or things like that. This is my folder. My world is my happy place, even though it may be strange.
You've shown some incredible development and insight. Do you know where you want to go from here?
I want to become an author. I want to write a story. I want to write stories. That's what I want to do. And what I've done so far is that I'm writing you know what a fan fiction is?
Yeah.
Basically what it is that you like a show like Pokemon. You like it so much that you want to write a story about it.
Oh,
of course you
For
can.
fanzines and
Yeah,
websites.
fanzines and things like that.
Okay.
It's like when you create a story that's based on a show that's already existing. It's gotten a lot of attention. I showed it to the people in the Writers Guild at high school. They really like it.
Do you have any special talents or preferences for activities that you like to do?
Writing.
Writing. Okay. I have another question.
Yes.
Could you tell us some people that you look up to or that have inspired you?
I look up to people like Temple Grandin, and I look up to people who have made a name for themselves in the world, who have Asperger syndrome or autism. Like they made themselves successful. They didn't let the disorder or other people's opinions of it get in the way. They went for it.
What kind of things did teachers do when you were young, like would you teach preschool, kindergarten, first, second?
Oh, back then?
Yeah, what kind of things did people do that really helped you?
Well, nobody knew that I had Asperger syndrome back then. I was diagnosed when I was 8.
Right.
So it
Which
was
is about
kind of
the
like a
usual
normal
age
life.
group.
What did people do that stressed you?
People
What were your
always
problems?
breaking the rules. I am a rule freak. If you break the rules, you're in for it now.
Ryan, you went to British primary school, is that correct?
Yes.
And then you went to the middle school. Your first time was up at Lincoln Middle School. You came in
6th and 7th grade was
grade.
at Methwood High School.
8th grade, you came to the middle school, right?
Yes, I came
Yeah,
to
because
the
I was up there when you came in. Yeah, because they didn't diagnose me in the British schools until later.
Right.
So what
No, I
was
was
it
in
like
North
being in the
Carolina
British
with the-
schools?
Yeah, I wasn't diagnosed in a British school. I was in an
No.
American school
Right.
back in
But
North
Ryan,
Carolina.
She wanted to know, what was it like in the British school compared to the American school?
The elementary schools, the school I went to, wonderful place. We did all kinds of activities, and the teachers you could get along with. I mean, I've grown very fond of these teachers, and it was sad when they retired. Only one teacher works there now who has been there since my childhood. And what we would do is on every Thursday when I was there, we'd go swimming. We'd take swimming lessons at a special place, and at certain times of the year, maybe once a year, we'd go to the pantomime, if anyone has heard of it. We go to the pantomime. It was a wonderful experience. So much so that I plan to go back there one day just for the memories.
Brian, tell them why you decided, or why your parents decided to change from the British system to the American system.
Because-
What was happening then?
I was having so many behavior problems. The kids were nasty and spiteful. I mean, I couldn't even see suspicious activity in the playing field. I think what they would do is that they would gather in rings. There were usually 3 of those rings. And they'd have, I think I may have seen someone with a cigarette in their hand. Maybe even, I don't know how many people smoked out there, but it's pretty obvious, and the teachers do nothing about it. The teachers there, they did not help me with my problems at all. They just let it grow worse. Obviously, they wasn't taught about autism, so that's when I decided I wanted to go to the American system, because any school is better than this one. And we went during the beginning of 8th grade. 7th grade, I was forced to stay there for another year. I feel it was the biggest waste of time of my life, because there was nothing being done about the problems that I was having. Middle school, however, they knew how to deal with my problems. And I'm pleased about that. Any more questions?
You mentioned Temple Grandin. I think everyone pretty much knows her, but maybe there's some other people that inspire you with Asperger's that we haven't heard of. Can you give us some more examples?
Maybe I can, but there's more. There might be a couple of people that have Asperger syndrome, but oh yeah, there's one guy on YouTube. He made a video about Asperger syndrome. It's called In My Mind. It's on YouTube, so you can't watch it. But his name is Alex Olinquist. If anyone's seen that video, it has over 1 million views. He describes himself and what it's like to have Asperger syndrome. He's a pretty good paint user. If anyone's used that program, he likes to create pictures to represent what he's talking about. He gives pretty interesting examples of what it's like for him. He mentions that we do seem to live in our world, and we live in the real world, but not 100%, as he calls it. Like, we live in both worlds at the same time. We live in our fantasy world, we live in the real world at the same time, so it gets kind of strange that way. It's so true for me.
It's true for everybody, dear.
You seem to have very good eye contact.
Yes.
But I actually heard a panel of Asperger's before, who talked about eye contact, and they said, if you're forcing us to have eye contact, we're not doing anything else. It's so hard for us to focus with our eyes. It's not worth it having a goal. Did you ever have to work through that, or do you know other people who have difficulty with it?
Yeah, I think I might used to have some problems with eye contact. I'd stare at the floor and talk to people. And when I learned about eye contact, when I first started researching autism, I began to see that people like eye contact. Temple Grandin showed a picture about like a movie. It's called Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? This is work done by Ami Klin. Basically, he had a bunch of people with Asperger syndrome and high-function autism, and what he discovered in the normal people that were watching it is that they look at the person's eyes, while the autistic person looks at the mouth, because they have some autistic students. They seem to have this problem with hearing. They might not necessarily be deaf. It might be they have a problem with auditory detail. It's Temple Grandin describes this as the ability to hear hard consonant sounds. Any other questions?
Okay.
Thank you.
Are you going to do anything?
Huh?